The gavel struck like thunder. "Sit down." Judge Napolitano's voice sliced through the chamber, commanding, final. Papers fluttered. Gasps rippled. Every camera pivoted toward one woman. Jasmine Crockett didn't move. She didn't blink. Instead, she rose a little taller, her silence louder than any protest. The room held its breath. You could feel the static in the air, the charged disbelief of power meeting poise. Somewhere in the back, a whisper broke the stillness. "She's not sitting." Another voice murmured, "Keep recording." The hum of phones filled the air as history quietly unfolded. Napolitano's gavel hovered midair, authority hanging with it. Crockett's calm stare met his, steady, unflinching. That single moment, her refusal to shrink wasn't just defiance. It was declaration. It was every unspoken enough finding a voice. By the time she finally stepped forward, the room wasn't watching a hearing anymore. It was watching a reckoning, and before the hour was over, that moment his command. Her stillness would ricochet across every screen in America. But before the world saw that unforgettable moment, there was a long trail of tension that led right to it. Long before the gavel struck, the tension was already simmering. The hearing had begun as a debate over government oversight, a dry, procedural topic that somehow carried the weight of culture itself. Each question was sharper than the last, each response edged with ideology. It wasn't just policy, it was power, tested in real time. At the center sat Judge Andrew Napolitano, former bench authority, cable fixture, a man who'd built his reputation on command. His voice carried the rhythm of rulings past, each word clipped, deliberate, absolute. Across from him sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, young, black, brilliant, unafraid. Where his tone was judicial, hers was human. Where he demanded control, she demanded clarity. From the first exchange, it was clear. He saw debate as disorder. She saw silence as surrender. When Crockett pressed him on accountability, he interrupted. When she clarified, he sighed. When she persisted, he warned. Each subtle act a reminder of how often women like her are expected to yield, even in the spaces they've earned. But Crockett didn't yield. She leaned in. Each word she spoke carried the weight of generations tired of waiting their turn. The old order demanded quiet. She brought the storm, but what viewers didn't know was that this wasn't the first time she'd been told to stay quiet, and it wouldn't be the last time she refused. For decades, Judge Andrew Napolitano carried himself like the embodiment of order, a man of crisp diction and sharper certainty. He'd once been the voice cable news turned to when the nation wanted law explained with authority. His words carried weight, his pauses even more. But as the political tides shifted, something inside him seemed to harden. The America he'd once lectured felt unrecognizable, louder, more diverse, unwilling to bow to the kind of authority he'd spent a lifetime mastering. On television, he began to sound less like a scholar and more like a scold. He railed against what he called emotional politics, lamenting that passion had replaced principle. But beneath that complaint lay something deeper in nostalgia for control. For the days when a raised eyebrow or a stern tone could silence a room, in hearings, his courtroom cadence lingered. He didn't just expect order, he demanded it. And when he didn't get it, irritation crept through the cracks of his composure. To him, silence equaled respect. Deference equaled discipline. But that formula was built for an era fading fast. He built his reputation on commanding silence, until one woman refused to grant it. But across the aisle sat someone whose entire career was forged in the fires of being. Dismissed Anne, she was done being told to sit down. Jasmine Crockett's story didn't begin under the lights of Congress. It began under the Texas sun, where hard work wasn't a slogan, it was survival. She grew up watching her parents stretch every dollar and every dream, learning early that dignity doesn't come from what you have, but from what you endure without breaking. Education was her escape route and her weapon. Law school wasn't glamorous. It was grueling. But she carried a purpose with her that others couldn't see. To speak for those who never got the microphone. As a public defender, she stood in courtrooms where her clients were poor, forgotten, or dismissed. Judges rolled their eyes at her objections. Prosecutors underestimated her. She remembered every smirk, every sigh, every time someone said, "Calm down, Miss Crockett." Each dismissal built her armor. Each small victory sharpened her resolve. Her calm wasn't submission, it was strategy. By the time she reached Congress, wasn't a politician polished by consultants. She was a fighter refined by fire. Her style wasn't to shout. It was to stay steady, to let the power of composure do the talking. To some, that made her too calm. To others, it made her unstoppable. Online supporters called her the calm in chaos. They shared clips of her speeches like rallying cries, snippets of quiet strength that reminded people what leadership could look like when it was grounded in purpose instead of ego. She represented something rare in American politics: grace under pressure, without apology. So when Judge Napolitano's gavel came crashing down, she wasn't intimidated, she was prepared. The hearing had been simmering for nearly an hour before it boiled over. Voices overlapped, points blurred into interruptions, and the rhythm of control began to slip. Napolitano's tone sharpened with each exchange, each attempt to steer the conversation back into his authority. "Congresswoman, you are out of order," he said, eyes narrowing with respect. Judge Crockett replied evenly, "I'm well within it. You just don't like where the order leads." A few heads turned. The air thickened. Someone muttered, "Oh, she's pushing him." Cameras refocused, capturing the growing tension. Napolitano leaned forward, finger raised a gesture that once silenced rooms. "This hearing is not a place for grandstanding," he said, voice clipped. She didn't blink. "Neither is it a place for silencing." The words hung like smoke. His jaw tightened. "You will yield the floor." "I'll yield," she said, her tone measured. "When I've made the record clear." Gasps whispered through the chamber. Staffers exchanged looks. The tension was electric, the air charged with that collective awareness that something irreversible was about to happen. Napolitano's patience cracked. He slammed the gavel down once, twice, the echo slicing through the silence. "Sit down." The command thundered across the room. Crockett didn't move. She remained still, her expression unreadable, eyes locked on him, calm, centered, unshaken. The silence that followed was louder than any shout, and then, with every camera rolling, Jasmine Crockett delivered the line that would echo across the nation. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The echo of the gavel still hung in the air when Jasmine Crockett leaned toward her microphone. Her hands didn't tremble. Her voice came low at first, clear enough to slice through the tension without breaking it. "Judge," she said, each word deliberate, "I will stand as long as justice demands it." The room went still. 1 second. 2. The silence said everything. Even Napolitano froze, the authority he wore like armor suddenly slipping off his shoulders. He blinked once, trying to gather his composure, but the balance of power had shifted quietly, completely. Crockett didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. Her restraint was the power. "You asked for order," she continued, tone unwavering, "and I'm giving you exactly that." The order of truth over fear turned into murmurs. Then came the soft ripple of approval, a few nods, a few whispered yes. Across the room, staffers who'd been pretending to take notes were now recording, phones tilted upward, catching every second. Napolitano tried to speak, but nothing came. He looked down, straightened a page that didn't need straightening. Crockett stood in quiet dignity, her presence filling the room more than any shout ever could. It wasn't rebellion, it was reclamation. The clip hit Twitter before the hearing even adjourned. Within hours, it spread like wildfire. "That's how you handle power," one tweet read. Another, "She didn't just stand her ground, she stood for all of us." TikTok edits layered her words over swelling music. Captions called it, "The stand heard across America in a political world addicted to outrage." Crockett had done something rarer. She'd made composure revolutionary. But if you thought the viral moment ended there, wait until you see what happened next, when America took sides. By nightfall, the clip had escaped the chamber and taken over the world. Twitter lit up like a switchboard. Hashtag, "She stood up," hashtag, "SitDownGate," hashtag, "Crockett vs. Napolitano." Within hours, the video hit 1 million views. Then 5. News alerts buzzed across screens. Judge loses cool on House floor. Crockett's calm goes viral. The moment power blinked. Cable networks replayed it in slow motion, dissecting every glance, every pause. One commentator said it wasn't just defiance, it was discipline. Another fumed. "This is what happens when respect for authority dies." Late-night comedians joked about it. Activists turned it into anthem clips. Even classrooms played it a lesson in tone, in grace, in unshakable composure. On TikTok, users remixed her line to music, "I will stand as long as justice demands it." It became a rallying cry, echoing through digital hallways, across generations and borders. For millions watching, Crockett's stillness wasn't just an act, it was a statement. Her stance became a mirror, reflecting something deeper than a single confrontation. It asked a question the country still wrestles with: who gets to speak and who must stay silent? But beyond the noise, beyond the memes, something deeper was shifting, and Jasmine Crockett knew it. When the storm settled, Jasmine Crockett didn't claim victory. She spoke softly in interviews, her words carrying more weight than any headline. "I wasn't standing against a man," she said. "I was standing for what's right." There was no triumph in her tone, only conviction. She talked about respect, not revenge. About democracy as a space where conscience should never require permission. "Dignity," she said, "isn't granted by title. It's lived in how we choose to respond." Across the country, her calm became contagious. Teachers played the clip to students learning about courage. Young women posted videos with the caption, "Stand tall." Even those who disagreed couldn't ignore the grace she brought to confrontation. Her composure reframed what strength looks like in a divided nation. Not fire, but light. Not noise, but resolve. It was a reminder that power doesn't come from silencing others, but from standing firmly in truth, and as the echo of that gavel fades, one truth remains. Some voices don't sit down, they rise. Judge Napolitano yelled, but Jasmine Crockett stood. In that moment, power tried to command silence, and met something stronger: conviction. What began as a clash became a mirror, showing the country what dignity under pressure truly looks like. Her calm wasn't compliance, it was courage. Her stillness wasn't silence, it was strength. In a world where power demands quiet, standing is the loudest sound of all. If you believe dignity still matters in politics, share this story, subscribe, and keep standing. Because sometimes, one person's composure can remind an entire nation how to rise.